Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and welcome back to F1 Manager 23. This is episode 32. We've reached a point in the season now that we've switched our focus to researching the massive new regulations for next year that we are not having to develop parts for this year's car in the same manner. There's going to be significantly less cost going into it, though the research projects certainly are not inexpensive. But ultimately, it will be less expensive because of the manufacturing side. You're not manufacturing 6 parts for what becomes an obsolete design once you have a new one, and you still had 3 or 4 of those parts left by the time you get to the new one, where you then have to manufacture, 4, 5, 6 parts to then cycle through that again later in the season as it becomes obsolete, and 3 of those go to the wayside, or 4 of those go to the wayside as you bring on the new components. We do have to keep up with manufacturing the old components, so keeping an eye on the failed tests, right? There's 4 components, 2 front wings that have to be replaced, and I'll have to keep up with that. But that's still significantly less use. And like I said, those parts that get thrown to the bin or just held in reserve if you get desperate, but those parts that go to the bin are where we're really saving that money. That will add up to millions of dollars over the course of this season, which puts us in a good place right now. It's the end of May, which means we have the turn of the month coming, so we're going to have a big payday, and we're already up to 23 million at the moment with the Canadian Grand Prix in 11 days. But we are going to have to spend some of it right away because our side pod research project is complete, and I mean, look at the massive gains we're talking about here. Massive. 6% pretty much across the board for side pods. Now, of course, that's nowhere near where we're at now, right? The loss is massive, but this is what it's going to take to get back into play, right? Back into something competitive next season. And I'm really hoping that we find ourselves on the front foot next year by going 100% all in on research the rest of the year here. The underfloor gains are less pronounced, so we're going to want to invest a bit more heavily in that one for the next project. And our rear wing research project, likewise, is pretty minor. That side pod project is one of the ones that got more ATR hours. So the next project that was already ongoing and not yet done is the front wing. That's going to be done in a week. I've spent the remainder of our hours 50-50 on the chassis and suspension, which will give us coverage of everything once. That'll be the first research project out of the way, the first gains, first recovery. Now, each subsequent recovery is going to earn you less and less and less as you go along, right? The closer you get to mastery, the more you have diminished returns. So we are going to start experiencing those diminished returns. But of course, a couple of those research projects we've done so far did not have hours input into them. So actually, like the underfloor, we're going to see significantly more gains on the next one as long as we contribute the research time to it. Monthly car development report now shows that we are starting to slip down the order a little bit, which means others are continuing to come with new upgrades on this year's car and not yet researching next year's car or splitting time on it, which is going to give us a leg up. I'll take that. I will take that. We have points this season. We've scored quite a few points this season. We will continue to perform for a little while before they really overtake us, and even if they have overtaken us, we just speed things up and research our way to the end of the season to prepare for next year, and of course continue to see Flourish develop. That's the big key this season. We'll get as many points as we can while we are still ahead of the field enough to be able to do so. When it dries up, it dries up. But for the first time since the very beginning of this series, we have now earned high confidence marks from the board. We can truly say that our job is safe for the medium term. At some point, having Logan Sargent is almost a liability for us, because if he performs too well, then the expectations go up. And so when we eventually try to hand the reins over to Florsch. When we try to hand the reins over to a second female driver, whoever that ends up being, the drop-off is going to be severe, and the performance will not be there initially. And we could very quickly end up losing our job for the decision we make. So at some stage, I'm actually half tempted to let Sargent go and get a weaker driver who's 5 or 6 attribute points lower, who will struggle to score points, and that will help keep the board the board expectations a little more moderate. The weaker our driver lineup is, the weaker we perform on a regular basis, the more inclined they're going to be to, oh gosh, we finished 8th this year, let's finish 7th next year, as opposed to, gosh, you just finished 6th, let's get on the podium, let's take 3rd place next year. Something, maybe that's a little extreme, maybe they'll aim for 4th, but then when we're sitting there in 8th or 9th with a different driver lineup, a weaker driver lineup, we quickly lose our job. So trying to keep expectations a little lower is a great way to keep us at our job. Or we keep Sargent and go win a championship with him while fostering the growth of Florsch, who eventually becomes good enough, and then when we see her consistently taking 2nd and 3rd place, then we go, okay, all right, it's time. Bye-bye, Sargent, or totally tank Sargent on purpose and set her up for wins and make her our lead driver and give him an extra pit stop every race or something. I don't know. Cheese our way to making her win. Speaking of driver development, Sargent picks up 2 points in control, now in 80. He's getting faster and faster, defending also +1. Defending +1 for Florsch. Adaptability. Adaptability +2. The one thing she really doesn't need, the thing that's already the highest. But dang, somebody is going to handle the wet weather just fine. But control +1, so a little more pace. Entering June. For the month of May, I remember very clearly what I set up for our pit crew training. And we had 1 week off at the end of the year, right? Or at the end of the month. We just had 11 days to prepare for the Canadian Grand Prix. Over the course of the races that we had, the weekends that we had races on, I managed our fatigue perfectly. And that's why we had 0 mistakes in any of the races. 0. So fatigue was not high. Preparing for the new month, we had about 4 days. So I did do training in those 4 days, which added some fatigue. There was going to be some fatigue. But the only way that I could have brought the fatigue into something manageable for Montreal, which was a 2-week period and only 4 days worth of training, which you normally do about 5 to 6 days worth of training, 2 weeks between races. That's the standard to cover off the fatigue gains. That's the one time you can really train other than maybe 1 day or half a session and manage your fatigue. So we were under that window, which is why I did it. I was like, we'll deal with it at the start of June. But we enter with crazy high fatigue that wasn't there, that didn't exist from the training, even though there was 0 mistakes. The mistakes add to the fatigue, but there was nothing else to add to the fatigue. So I'm very confused how our fatigue level got so high entering the month of June. And nothing I could have done would have managed that fatigue very well. Entering Montreal, we would have been looking at 80% fatigue by race day. 80% fatigue with 0 training. Doesn't add up. Does not add up. We're entering the month with 100% fatigue on the first day of the month. Doesn't add up. Like the maths, it's just not there. So what I'm opting to do, instead of doing 0 training whatsoever and trying to get it under control, which then still leaves us with 80% fatigue for the race, and then trying to manage it for the rest of the month to get it under control for the other races, I'm embracing the fact that we are guaranteed to have fatigue. We are guaranteed to have a whole lot of fatigue for Montreal. If it's at 80%, fuck it, 100%. Might as well. The extra training pushes us way beyond the additional 20% gain. So we actually make at least some sort of gain in terms of where we're going, where we're headed, what we're getting, and then start dealing with recovery following Montreal. 20% higher. So there is a trade-off. That extra fatigue is problematic. I've got it down into the teens for the last 2 races of the month for Austria and Silverstone, but it's still a bad month for us. Whichever way you look at it, we're looking at taking losses in our pit crew attributes. We're looking at taking big losses on our pit stop time and getting nowhere on car building. This is ridiculous. Where did this 60 extra percent or 50 extra percent of fatigue come from? I'm baffled.
Formula One has arrived here in Quebec, and we're excited to get underway. On a man-made island in the heart of Montreal is Canada's Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. This unique track circles the outline of the Ile Notre Dame, giving plenty of challenges to our drivers between the tight corners and a long final straight. With a flat-out section of over 1 kilometre in Sector 3, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is a track that asks, who dares brake last? And that means it's tough on tyres and brake temperatures the whole way round. 70 laps of the Canadian Grand Prix await our drivers here in Montreal. I suspect that we'll all be closely following Charles Leclerc in this one.
It's a promising position for them starting in P3. They'll be looking to make the most of the slipstream.
But just what will happen here, your guess is as good as mine. This is it. We're moments away now at the Canadian Grand Prix. And it's lights out and away we go.
All right, we are racing in Montreal. Florsch qualified last, but starts P17 as others have penalties. We're going to go for a much more aggressive strategy today. We'll see if it pays off. That is Sargent, who started P11, but off the line is P12, still battling, trying to get into that P11, but it looks like we'll have to settle for the one position lost. Ocon beating us out down the opening corners. The aggressive strategy that I'm going for today, everybody else, or a lot of teams, are going to be opting for a one-stopper with mediums to hards as Florsch overtakes Bottas to keep P17 for the time being. I have every intention of trying to run hot, run harder, push more, and pit. Ultimately, faster by quite a bit to push, gain time, and pit twice. See if it pays off. We'll see how many teams opt for that. Will the aggressive strategy work out for us today? One lap in the books. Florsch holding on to her position. Sargent. We're surrounded by cars on mediums that are opting for maybe a one-stopper here. Ocon nearly a second behind. Giovinazzi nearly a second behind. Albon is already a second and a half behind as Bottas squeezes past Florsch. Okay, 2 laps settling down. We have underfueled, so we've got to be careful with that part. Magnussen overtakes Florsch. Well, she's down to 19. She doesn't get DRS a single time as she gets overtaken just like that. Florsch back around Magnussen. Her battling for position is fantastic for her development, or at least under the old system. It was so clear under the old system. I do not understand the new system. Does it still, under the hood, work the same way as the old system or not? I don't know. Do overtakes matter? We know that it matters to morale. Has this system shifted over to morale, but what about development? Right, we know that development is now done on a monthly basis and that there's training involved, but it's just not clear how, what, why that development occurs. So Florsch certainly not last, and she is battling back and forth with Magnussen a little bit. So she's not just straight to last place and out of this thing, but it is the back 5 that are quickly showing to be out of this thing. Albon, 4 seconds back. Florsch again around Magnussen. We are starting to open up a gap as Giovinazzi got around Tsunoda and then immediately lost some ground. So that battle cost them some time, and now they're 3.5 seconds back, and it's going back fast. I'm guessing it's them.
Now there's an inviting opportunity there. And not just one car
All champions.
that, as you can see.
How did they not go into the wall? No penalties given. Racing incident. But that opens up a big gap behind us, so we no longer have to worry about that group, and this is exactly what we were looking for. We were looking to get out away from some other cars with the extra pit stop, with the undercut. Opening up a gap on them already on this first stint is going to be important. Keep it up with the front runners, speaking of. So it's the Red Bulls on top. Porsche is currently 3rd, with the 2 Ferraris just behind him, but they're close. Gasly is 2 seconds further back. So it's relatively close. 1st to 12th. Us being that 12th. So we are right there in a train. And we'll have a chance to undercut some of these guys and really get going as they continue on. And we'll be on fresh tires gaining time. Can we beat any of them later on? I don't know. Will we, with 2 pit stops, have 2 mistakes? Will we have 1 mistake? Will we survive that and come out of this mistake-free? Remember, the fatigue is absurdly high, and the chance of mistake is over 50%. Florsch, meanwhile, P18. So that's looking fantastic. And both Zhou and Magnussen are being beat on merit. They're not from the incident. Tsunoda, Giovinazzi are keeping their position, but meanwhile they are dropping further back. Just a fraction of a second ago, it was showing 7 seconds, and now they're 6.1. Let's go ahead and top up as we are closing in. Yellow flags.
And we've had a crash on track.
Second crash of the day.
Right, let's have a look.
Oh, and it's the Red Bulls at the front.
Not a lot of wiggle room here. And the impact on the car, it's quite clear.
Max doing Max things. And my guess is he puts a good amount of damage in on either the underfloor or the side pod there of Sainz. Does that cost the 2 of them, both of them, one of them, the race? Meanwhile, I'm happy to see Florsch remaining in a battle, even if it's the battle at the back of the field, which, by the way, now we've got 2 groups forming behind us, so it's 7.5 seconds now to Tsunoda with De Vries right on him. But Gio was holding up the other group and went from DRS to 5.5 seconds back, so Gio is very much off the pace here after that incident. Tsunoda, hard to say whether he's off the pace or not. I mean, he's been holding at about 6 or 7 seconds. The ground they lost was from the incident itself by the time they accelerated out of it, and the concertina effect backed off the group. They were just about that far back anyway. But it does look like Gio is carrying a bit of damage, as that group really lost some ground. But Florsch is in the middle of that group, so she's got some other drivers to race with, and I'm happy for it. I'm here for that. It's lap 15. We are recovering fuel, so we are making some natural progression on that. Okay, we have closed back up, so let's go ahead and we will top up again. Gap now roughly 10 seconds to Tsunoda, and then 17 to Albon. So the undercut's not a done deal here, but it's... or the 2-stop strategy is not a done deal, but, to that back group, we've already covered off 17 seconds. That's already the majority of the pit stop, and it's only just the first stint. We've got 2 more pushing, attacking, going fast. Only problem for Florsch is she's in the back. She's suddenly going to be on her own. Will she actually be faster than them is the big question. We know Sargent will be faster than that group. Yellow flag. Multiple cars have crashed at turn 1.
Debris on track.
That's in the group behind us. And in front of... It's insane. It's De Vries now this time. And Tsunoda. De Vries and Tsunoda, so the next 2 cars on track. Tsunoda in his second incident. This time it's De Vries' fault. So again, the gap opens further. Tsunoda and De Vries get going again, but now they are 12 seconds behind. And this group is significantly closer. But that's making an awfully big gap to set 12th place up for us. Though we very much, this should be a penalty. Oh, wow. De Vries totally wipes out Tsunoda. He didn't turn in on him. He's not sufficiently alongside him. It dives off into the pits. First regular pit stopper of this race. Looking for the undercut, and we are going to stay aggressive here on the hards. And we're going to come back out in front of a group of cars. Still in P12? Holy crap. I didn't expect to have gained that much time. Florsch, 2.616. Neither one made a mistake. Dang. Well, that's phenomenal. Folks, we got clean air. We got enough of a gap to not even lose a position with Sargent. Now, 18 seconds behind those ahead of us, but 3 seconds ahead of Giovinazzi. De Vries overtakes Florsch, so she's just behind them. So Florsch came out right behind De Vries and Tsunoda, who had been definitely further up the road. You can see De Vries, extra 8 seconds, probably put on a wing. That's what knocked him back to us, but Florsch gets overtaken, drops back by a second. I'm guessing he's not on hards. No. You're the only one on track, on hards at the moment. Keeping an eye on the gap is going to be important here, because these hards, what is our pace like? Are we gaining or losing ground? We have got to be as fast or faster than those around us. And at the moment, Sargent is a second a lap faster than everyone behind him, but he's roughly the same pace as everyone ahead of him. Both drivers in clean air, so not much to see. Giovinazzi pitting. Yeah, we're holding pretty steady, but we are maybe just slightly faster than a few of these guys, so we do still have a chance to maybe undercut someone, but we can certainly pull away from this group, which we've already managed to use that first stint to pull away from. So even if they one-stopper from here, we've already got everyone behind us covered off. Now it's about whether we can go forward. But we also have that threat of pit stop issues. So we survived the first one, but what about the second one? That was 0.3 to nearly a second faster than the cars ahead of us. So that was a good lap. They're starting to lose a little bit of pace. I think they're dropping below that 60%. This is where we can actually start making the gains, as their pace drop-off is going to be a little more severe than ours, and we will finally start gaining on them. Right now we're running very similar lap times, or at least we were. Is this the beginning of starting to cover that off? Yeah, not quite. We gained a little bit, 0.3 on Piastri, but are these guys going to one-stopper? Are they going to the hards and trying to go the distance? Start checking in on that. Sargent with a lockup.
Don't worry about it.
He just dropped 6%. How much time loss are we talking about here? Little driver mistake, little lockup. He didn't lose too much time there, but he loses a little bit on the tires. Ocon has pit and come out 3.5 seconds behind, so we have undercut Ocon, but on the fresh tires, he's fast. He's already close to within 2 seconds of us. He's on brand new mediums. Ocon's already gotten around Sargent. Florsch gets around Magnussen, who pits. So she's back up in P19 for now. Undercut has worked a little bit to make her more competitive, but a lot of these cars, it's one pit stop only. So that second stop is going to impact things. And as others have stopped, we now have a 15-second advantage over Tsunoda. De Vries is 7.5 further back. And then there's your pack. Sargent battling with Ocon. We've been working on that fuel recovery. We've recovered a little over a kilogram of it through a little over halfway of this race, which means we are going to have to lift and coast a little bit and at some point. But our front group is not all bunched together anymore. It's a little bit stretched, but not by much. I mean, Sainz is way out there on his own, but that's probably because he has yet to pit, I'm assuming. But starting with Leclerc. Now Stroll in 12th. Stroll, 6.5 seconds back. Yikes, what happened there? He must have had a problem on his pit stop, because that now puts us in 11th, battling for 10th. VSE, virtual safety car. We had an overtake failed, but hopefully that was not us being in the incident. It's a little early to stop, but this seems like the best time to do so. The time loss is at a minimum. Put on the mediums instead and go the distance. Or go softs. Go softs and just don't push as much. You know what? We're just going to pit early and not push this time. Alright, let's see what has happened. Front group. It's Verstappen. It's one of the Mercedes. Leclerc as well? Was it all three of them? It's like second, third, fourth place. Leclerc and Perez are both out of the race. Okay, it was Leclerc locking up and taking out Perez. We didn't see it through the wall, but that's apparently what happened. But Florsch already on pit road, taking advantage of the VSC. Good stop for her, 2.638.
Probably that.
That is 3 for 3. I'm not liking our odds at the moment for Sargent on what this could mean.
You can afford to drop back.
This is going to help us with the fuel recovery quite a bit, I think, by the end of this safety car, or VSC period. Leclerc picks up the penalty. Yes, Leclerc locked up and went into the back of Perez. Fingers crossed, please, please. No mistake, no mistake. We've already gained 2 positions from 2 front runners taking each other out. Yes! Slow, but 2.777. Piastri, Hards to the end. Ocon, like these guys are going the distance. Sonoda is not, so we don't have to worry about behind us. We are in the points today, but can we move forward? Will we have enough pace to do so? Florsch finally moving up to P18. Her gaps are looking like 28 seconds. Ouch on that part. Her extra pit stop hurting her. Right, well this means some clean air as we are running, and you know what? There's a lot of cars that are going to be pushing after that VSC, Sargent. Alright, settling in now. Lap 51, so about 20 laps left in that P10, and we're going the right direction at the moment. We are already closer to Stroll than we were. She has been lapped now, so actually her fuel is good to go at this stage. Sargent will not be lapped. Sonoda stops. At some point this season, I have every intention of absolutely sabotaging our pit crew for the sake of progress for next season. I will at some point go 100% and just train every single session, give them no rest, max out the fatigue, and accept the fact that they're going to make a lot of mistakes in the final few races of the year, potentially, to prepare them for next season. Kind of like, you know, major technical changes and let's focus on research. The benefits to maximum training comes at a cost, but you could recover that fatigue. You could train and train and train and train and train. If you do it over a while, you can't go over 100% fatigue. Lap 63, so only a couple laps later, but the gap to Stroll has opened up quite a bit. We're 11.5 seconds back now. Stroll's caught and passed Gasly. Ocon's actually moving up too, so there are drivers that are going backwards. Why are they going backwards? Well, we're on 51% used mediums. We're on 68% used hards. We're on 56% used softs. Florsch, meanwhile, the gap's opened up a little bit because of blue flags, but might yet get up on there and be able to compete for 9th. But final lap starts. We've got a lap and a half to try to catch Gasly, and we're 2.5 seconds down. Florsch Go ahead and save your engine. Last 2 laps, nothing left to fight for there. 1.8 back. Beginning our final lap. 1.6. Come on hard, we've come on fast. Gasly's obviously the only one we've got any chance. But we're inside a second. Before the DRS zone, right? Should be right here. No, it was back there previously. 2 tenths back though, 2 tenths.
Make sure you give some energy.
Yeah,
Coming up on the hairpin, coming up the inside. Let's push, push, push.
Like to reduce like
Copy.
We've passed Gasly. We are in 9th place. Down the straight, down the straight, down the straight. 7 tenths ahead. We're pulling away. We got it. P9. Nice. Great last couple of laps there to come from well behind Gasly to move our way up to 9th place and pick up 2 points instead of 1. And it's another day and the points. Florsch, P18. That interval really opened there at the end, but she was just 9 seconds back.
Thanks, guys.
It was much closer, much more competitive. It's just those blue flags when she caught those front runners, or when the front runners caught her. Signs of Verstappen caught everybody, but the Russell, Norris, maybe Porsche, Piastri, that group, you know, they caught up. Those extra blue flags made a bit of a difference for her. 2 more points. We remain in 9th in the Drivers' Championship, which is just crazy to be that high. And Alpine, the one ahead of us, though, they picked up 9 points today. We picked up the scraps. We got those 2 points. But that's good. We don't want to overtake Alpine. I do not want to be that high up the grid. In fact, I'm not a fan of being in 7th. And at this point, it's looking impossible that these 3 are going to catch us and overtake us before the end of the year. At this point, this is starting to become more about, can we get the 12 races and finish the long-term goal? But again, the nervous energy surrounding this is the expectation for next year feels like it's going to be 5th. They want to go up a couple positions every year, right? So we're just adding more difficulties in future seasons. An upgrade to the wind tunnel, that's going to really help the research projects throughout the season. And speaking of facilities, just a quick check-in on where everything's at. On the operations facilities, you can see most of them are Tier 5 now, but the Weather Center is still at 3. Hospitality at Tier 2. We're not doing any big recruiting, so this is one we really don't need to max out anytime soon. On the staff facilities, Team Hub condition is down, just dropped down. This is morale and staff development. But it is a Tier 4. Scouting department's still Tier 1. No need to do it, but that race simulator is maxed out. What's the refurbishment like here? 1.2. The upgrade 6.5. I would rather go with the upgrade, but I don't necessarily want to spend that money just yet. We might come back to that one later. Let's see what happens. This is kind of the key area to the car development, and this is also the expensive one, so it's hard. And we've got things that are way down on condition, in huge need of boost. So there's a lot not going very well here. Development speed for car part manufacturing, it's low. It is very slow. Talking 11 million for the next upgrade, but it's not the 11 million that I really want to be investing in. 18 million to get the 4th level of the design center, which certainly would have a really good impact. That wind tunnel finally just getting up to level 3. That's all that was. 17 million for the next one. Simulator is 15 million for the next one, and would handle. I don't want to refurbish. I want to upgrade. Saves saves $4 million, and you refurbish a couple times, you're talking to 8 million when the upgrade takes care of the refurbishment at the same time. But this is looking really bad, this suspension simulator. So maybe that's in such bad shape. Maybe it's time to spend the 10 million on this. It's all about the suspension, but our suspension has been weak. Definitely not the best $10 million investment, but one that's really necessary, as you know, we're getting to the point where that suspension simulator is completely useless. It's down to, almost the lowest level. So we need to get it upgraded, and we're talking about going brake cooling of 2.4% to getting up to 60%, 24 newtons to 60 newtons. That's a massive difference. And with the research projects and everything, this is a great chance for the suspension to not be terrible. The nice thing about the wind tunnel upgrade is that ATR, right? You're spending those hours. Those hours are now going to be more impactful on the level of bonus that they provide to our car part development and or research.
Welcome along to the spectacular setting of Austria. The hills are alive with the roar of F1 cars as we arrive in Spielberg's stunning natural surroundings. Fans have already filled the nearby campsites, and it's going to be a busy weekend here at the Red Bull Ring. Here in Austria, we're all ready to go for the sprint. And it's lights out, and away
It's sprint
we go.
racing in Spielberg, and we are in a unique circumstance. One, Sargent had a terrible day qualifying P19. Practice-wise, he's 13th fastest, so really poor qualifying effort. Our setup not as high because it's a sprint weekend, and will this cost us? Or will we be able to make progress through the field? Sargent already up to P16 and continuing to try to progress. Still working on that P16. He was 17th a moment ago. 30% chance of rain in 2 minutes. Finally get around Bottas, now 15th. And the rain begins to fall. 0.08 coming around pit road. It's definitely not yet time to pit. May have enough of a gap behind us to not have to worry about those guys. But chances are, even if we pit faster, we're going to end up waiting for at least one of the 4 cars ahead of us. We're at the end of pit road. We're going to the full wets. And we sit. And we're still sitting. And we're still sitting. The camera panned away. We're still sitting. Florsch has already caught up to us. We finally come out ahead of one McLaren and Magnussen. Here's the risk, folks. I know the risk I'm taking. We are both off the pace and making our tires degrade. But how fast do the others end up having to come in and pit? And will we gain track position or not? But the pace lost. Albon's the only one anywhere near us, because he's also on wets, and Pourchaire is also on wets, so those two pit a lap later and went for the full wets. This is not working out. The rain is not coming anywhere near it. It was supposed to be lap 12 that we were in full wet conditions. It's lap 19, but it's too late. The weather prediction has not panned out as expected. The transition was supposed to be 3 to 4 laps. Our pace is phenomenal right now. We are so much faster than everybody else, but it's way too late for it to do us any good.
Here among the Austrian mountains, the grid is now set for the 71 laps of the Red Bull Ring. And for Lando Norris, this is another chance to see what he can do in this car.
They start this race in P9, eager to fight for a place in the points.
And it looks like we're good to go. It's the race we've all been waiting for. It's the Austrian Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
I decided against taking the penalty. I don't know why I did that. I really just should have taken the penalty starting from P17. It's not a good place to be, but we're looking at a race situation as we've got debris all over the track and a virtual safety car.
Just remember, in the main straight,
Turn 1
there has to be
incident.
some debris.
I saw the debris. I didn't see the incident. It happens in the middle of the grid. It looked like it collected a few cars, so that could be beneficial for us.
Not much that the team can do about that one.
Gio at the heart of that one. And Gio and Zhou are both out, so we're up 2 positions. So we're now in P15, P17 as the VSC lifts here on lap number 3, right as the rain begins to fall. Wind, it's going to be a slow light rain all day long. It could be in between dry conditions and wet conditions. Should never go beyond intermediates, but we'll see whether it remains capable of staying on the soft compounds. For now, the expectation was that we're going to push because we are shifting to the intermediates. Putting Albin under pressure and making the pass. Up DRS advantage. We go up the inside this time. Continuing to push on. DRS a second time, and we make the overtake. Holding at about 0.76 now. It really has not changed much at all. It's just very, very, very slowly progressing to maybe, just maybe, reaching damp conditions. Healthy gap to Bottas means I shouldn't have to deal with being held up in the pits. Though we probably will anyway. If others double stacking, we'll lose some ground. Had a problem on the pit stop. At least 2 seconds longer. Come out in the same position anyway. Flourish in and out, no problems for hers. In fact, it's a good stop, 2.47. I've been pushing for a lap or two here, and it's allowed us to close up on Albin and Tsunoda. Albin's starting to go backwards as Tsunoda has gotten back around him, and we do have the fuel to make a push and try to make an overtake. So as we close in on the end of this lap, we are right on Albin. Will we be able to get by to the inside? Not quite, not this time. What about up the hill? Heading for 3. We get alongside briefly. Full attack. We are alongside now. And we've got the position. Everything cooled off. Now it's time to go on the attack again. Go ahead and deploy this time. Oh, gosh, we were so close to getting up underneath them in the braking zone, but up the hill, finally we are able to get alongside and complete the overtake. From our heavy fuel, we underfueled by 3 laps and we've only had 1 VSC. De Vries, Magnussen are stopping. Oh, that's because it's starting to dry out. Starting to dry out. Track has changed to dry. First cars are in the pits and coming out, but there's no rubber, there's no grip yet. That happened rather suddenly, but down pit lane, Tsunoda in the pits. We had a decent little gap to Tsunoda. Will we come out ahead of him? It's a good stop, and we do come out ahead of him. It wasn't a very good stop, 2.751. It looked like a better stop than it was. So Flourish is a lap down to Sargent now with 10 laps to go. We've got fuel to make a push. We are close to De Vries. We have just overtaken Tsunoda, and we're within a second. So it's time to push on a little bit and make sure that we have that DRS. And we do. We do have that DRS, so this is good. We've got fuel to burn. We are conserving the tires as best we can, but what's that pace difference? All the guys around us are on the softs, so they are on a very similar strategy. And we've already gotten De Vries, but that puts us 8 seconds behind Norris. And only just ahead of him, re-overtaken. Too many DRS zones, it's really hard to pull away here. We'll get it out to 7/8 tenths. That used that fuel up pretty fast. A lot faster than I expected it to. In fact, there's the overtake is on. With 3 laps to go, now we are the one behind De Vries. Okay, now we need to conserve a little bit. Recover some fuel to make a push later on. It's 3 laps to go. We don't need to overtake them right away. Final lap for Verstappen, but we've still got a lap and a half to go. Right where I want to be. Last lap overtake is going to be a nice, easy one for us. Get it done before the first corner.
Okay, check a flag. Yeah, it's not left anywhere.
Okay, final DRS zone. This is as far as you need to hold them off for. Flourish. Ouch, finishes 2 laps down.
Yeah, copy that.
DRS is currently
Use
disabled.
the battery,
DRS is
but
currently disabled.
they are at a point where it's going to be hard to do anything. In fact, we're 7/10 ahead, so it looks like P12 is secure. Played that one right, but it is what it is. It's an on-points day. 1, we started a little too far back. 2, got held up on the switch over to intermediates and had a mistake, so we lost 2 seconds and we got held up by other cars.
Checkered flag.
Yeah, didn't work out too well for us on that part.
On target, good job.
Otherwise, nice recovery.
Yeah, good job. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
it's on
this
target
weekend,
for the day.
guys.
It's just no points. That's going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer.
What
Like,
a
comment, subscribe, and I'll see you
dreadful
next
day
time.
it's ended up being
Have a good one.
for the
Be safe out there.
Williams driver.
Bye for now.